James chapter 2. I'm going to hit this again. I have the paper secure this time. See, nothing fell. I'm going to read a lengthy passage. I'm going to read a pathy linkage. One of the two. My brethren, do not hold the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, with partiality. For if there should come into your assembly a man with gold rings and fine apparel, and there should also come in a poor man in filthy clothes, and you pay attention to the one wearing the fine clothes and say to him, you sit here in a good place, and say to the poor man, you stand there, or sit here at my footstool, have you not shown partiality amongst yourselves, and become judges with evil thoughts? Back in the day, it was very common that the rich people would have the good seats at the temple, and the poor people would either have to stand, sit on the floor, or be in the nosebleeds. What's funny is, when High Holy Days come around, and you buy tickets, the better seats are more expensive. It's a donation. So whoever makes the better donation gets the better seats at High Holy Day services. Nothing's changed. But James is addressing new believers, because everybody's a new believer right now, and he's saying don't start these habits. There is no indication that there was an immediate concern that James was addressing. And when you see in the next passage, the next pathy linkage that I'm going to read, you will see that he's so broad in what he's covering in this that anything could be applied. So, say it says, if you find someone, if a woman comes in and she's a hottie, and you give her the good seats, but a dumpy chick comes in, and you make her sit in the back, it would totally apply. A lot of times I say we generalize scriptures so much because they're really about a specific thing. But in this instance, oddly enough, you could kind of play Mad Libs with it and take out the examples used over and over again and put just about any example and it would apply. Because what he's really talking about is church isn't about who you like and the kind of people you want to hang out with. Church is about souls. And all souls are just as beautiful and amazing as yours and mine and the people we deem worthy of our friendship. This is why I say it's easier to love people than it is to like them. You know, that there is a recognition that God is looking at the souls, and the souls don't make fashion choices, and the souls don't make career choices, and the souls don't make lifestyle choices. The souls are the place that God dwells and is changing mankind from the inside. It goes on to say, if you really fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, you know, I don't know any other reference in scripture where this is called the royal law, but I really like it. Because when you find out what the royal law is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That's the royal law, according to James. You do well, but if you show partiality, you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. Because see, it was in the laws, in Leviticus, where God said you should love your neighbor as yourself. See, he threw in that one nugget. And it's the royal law because Jesus is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Prince of Peace, all those royal things. It's the one example of Christ in the law. It was the secret to the law, the way to unlock the law like a Rubik's Cube. And if you just follow that one passage of the law, you'd automatically obey the rest of it to God's liking. It was sitting right there all along. But if you don't follow the royal law, if you don't obey the royal law, it says you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. For whoever shall keep the whole law, yet stumble at one point, he is guilty of all. Now, he immediately goes into, for he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. Now, he has gone from rich people, poor people, good-smelling, bad-smelling people at church, to loving your neighbor as yourself, to murder and adultery. So he's all over the map, thus justifying my statement earlier that you could apply anything here. Any difference, what I like and what you like that don't agree with one another, you can apply here and say you can't show partiality based on that. Yeah, I'd rather sit by someone who smells good. It's the truth. But if I enforce that, if I manipulate that, then I am committing a sin and I'm violating the royal law. I love the royal law. I love that. Love the royal law. Now, if you do not commit adultery, you're still doing it. But you do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. Meaning, if you commit one sin of the law, you're guilty of the entire law. That's what he's saying. So speak and so do as those who will be judged by the law of liberty. Yeah, there's people that really want to take the book of James out of the Bible. I really beg to differ here. I beg to differ. This man just said, speak and so do as those who will be judged by the law of liberty. He's introduced the royal law. He's introduced the law of liberty. See, I like these things. I like the royal law, and I like the law of liberty. The royal law is love my neighbor as myself. The law of liberty is I have been forgiven of my sins. So as long as I don't show partiality to anybody, I'm under the law of liberty. But the minute I show partiality to anyone, I am now under the Mosaic law. And I'm as guilty as a murderer and adulterer the minute I show partiality. The second I show partiality, I'm a murderer. So speak and so do as those who will be judged by the law of liberty. For judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. I got like goosebumps on my neck right now. I want to say to him, for judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. I don't think he could be any more clear what he's saying. That the second you show partiality, you are guilty of judging, and you are now no longer under the law of liberty, but you are under the law, and you are as guilty as a murderer. You're Charles Manson, you're Ted Bundy. The minute you go, ill yuck, they come to my church? Ill yuck, they live on my planet? Because, in all fairness, if we're showing partiality in the church environment, and James is saying it's wrong, we're supposed to be reaching the world. So if we're showing partiality to the world, what is that? That seems worse. That seems worse, because how do we get them into church if we don't reach them in the world? Partiality starts in the home, but partiality starts in the heart. Partiality happens long before we get to our fancy churches. Partiality has been there all along. For judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. That's pretty clear. That's a lot tougher than judge not lest ye be judged, by the way. I like this one. Judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. So go ahead, show no mercy, and your judgment will show you no mercy. That's pretty clear. And then he says, mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. You know, if I wrote the Bible, I would have just written mercy trumps judgment. You know what I'm saying? Mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. I really love I really love the language of the Bible at moments like this. Because this is just one section of this big fat book that has countless sections that are just mind-boggling in their obviousness of what they're saying to people then and now and forevermore. And that is, once we have accepted Christ, we are no longer under the law of judgment. We're under the law of mercy. And if we're under the law of mercy, we have to exhibit that in all our dealings. Or we choose to go back under the law of judgment, and we are guilty of all of it. If we're operating in the law of mercy, we're inheritors of all of it. If we operate under the law of judgment, we're guilty of all of it. This is something that is said in every epistle in the New Testament. This is what's said all through the New Testament. This is what Jesus said in the parables when he talked about if a master forgives you your debt and comes and sees you beating your servants because they owe you money and they haven't paid you, then he's going to unforgive you. No, that does not mean you lose your salvation. It means you screw up your life and you screw up other people's chances of coming to know the Lord through your example. Speaking of examples, I may have been a little late getting on board with the internet, so maybe my dates aren't going to be right here, but I'm just going to talk about my own experience for a minute. I started this ministry in 2004, and we're in 2012 right now. And I remember that I had booked my first show, and the pastor of the church that I was playing called me and said, I looked all over the internet for your website, and I couldn't find a website for you. And I said, well, we're in the process of getting the website up because we're just finishing the record and we're using the artwork from the record. We're doing everything. Everything happened on the same day, literally. So I had to call this guy that was going to put together my website. I said, I can't get this show because the guy needs to see that I have a website. Boy, anyone can have a website. You know what I'm saying? It's like ordination. Anyone can be ordained. But but he needed to see that I had a website, but I didn't have one in 2004 when I started, because the first record wasn't finished, and the order of events was I was going to finish the record and work on the website. I didn't realize how important having a website was going to be, but of course now my website, which is by far the most perfect website on the planet, contains every single thing I've ever done available in every format to anybody forevermore. I mean, you know, it's exhaustive. Yeah, it is the best website because it's mine. I'm allowed to say that. I'm allowed to say that my kids are the best ever, right? And I'm the only one who's ever going to say my pit bull's the best dog ever. So, but seriously, so let's just say in 2004, I did have email. Because I think I had email from about 2000. So let's just say 12 years, but to be very safe, 10 years in the last decade. And there are people here that read news headlines a lot more than I do on the internet. So if I'm mistaken, or in TV land, if I'm mistaken, you can correct me. But I can't remember in the last decade, and 2 decades ago there was no internet. But I can't remember in the last decade the constant onslaught of horrifying Christians in the news like there is right now. I can't remember that. And I want to say that in my memory, even of the last 30 years, but in the last decade and a half, that there were more stories about people like, and I'm going back with Jim Jones or David Koresh, that there were more stories about cult leaders. There was the oh my gosh, the alien cult, the Halley's Comet cult people, you know, that we heard of weird people like Sai Baba You know, that there wasn't this kind of attention, that the kind of attention that I remember on embarrassing Christians in the news had to do with protesting movies like Last Temptation of Christ, which I'm sure is 20 years ago now, and you know, big ministers falling like Jim Bakker or Jimmy Swaggart. But I don't remember what I see now. And again, I want to say I can count on one hand minus fingers how many times in memory I've seen the kind of horrifying stuff that I'm seeing daily right now. You know, and it isn't just now that people got into YouTube and started posting YouTube viral videos. That's been going on a long time, right? I mean, I remember my first YouTube videos. I remember the first time I got a video on YouTube, and I thought I had arrived, you know, and that was, you know, 5 years ago or something. When did I play in Tempe, in front of Fetish Falls? It's like, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, that was 2,000 videos ago, but I still watch them, and I still get all waxed nostalgic over. I'm just so blown away that I was part of the YouTube community. And that's when MySpace mattered, by the way. What happened to that? A lot of work's going into these things. By the way, I called my web company, and I said, what happens when the next thing happens and you guys disappear? When you guys just, you know, when you become obsolete, what happens to all this work I've done? And I said, do you guys have a fail-safe system that you'll let us know if you're going bankrupt or something? Or are you going to do what Marie Callender's did and kick us out, you know, in the middle of dinner? You know, I mean, all that work on my website, my gosh, I was like, and they said, well, you know, this has actually been discussed. This has actually been discussed that, you know, more than likely, you know, a company will get bought out by another company and get bought out by another company. And they said there are stipulations in sales that by law they have to notify people that companies being bought out. And they said the laws won't change, you know, with technology. They'll, you know, because people are going to want your money. They're always going to want your money. And I said, that's very interesting. But I do not headline hunt. I funny, gross videos with fart joke hunt. I go after music videos from stuff from the 70s. I do not headline hunt. I very rarely, I mean, I glance at headlines when I go online, but I rarely click on stuff to look at video and then follow this link and this link to find all the crud. So I figure if it comes across my PC, it must be very popular. That's what I assume. I assume if it's a headline on Yahoo, it's pretty popular. That's my assumption. And again, if anyone wants to teach me and correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw a video of a little kid singing in church a song about no homos get to go to heaven, and a church applauding and hooting and just giving this kid a standing ovation and getting him to sing that over and over and over again. And I saw that and I was like, wow, if I film my church, it's to do what? Sure as hell ain't for me. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing edifying about watching my videos for me, trust me. You know, I have to watch some of this stuff, and like most people, I can't stand to watch myself and hear this. It's because I'm inviting them to my church, right? It's entirely, it's not for you guys, it's not for you to go back and get a second dose of this great sermon. I mean, these are all benefits, you know, that there's an accountability factor and you guys, you know, get to watch this stuff. No, it's about reaching people. It's about opening up the virtual doors of my church and inviting people in. This is no different than TV evangelism. You know, the preacher you see on TV that, you know, you don't leave your house, but you go to church on Sunday and you watch it on TV. There's no difference. And when that person, whoever filmed that little kid singing that, was in that room, and he filmed it because he knew they were going to sing, because it's edited perfectly from the start of the song until the end. So somebody knew what they were doing and they filmed it, and then they chose to put it on YouTube. So in so doing, they were saying, look at my church, come, welcome to my church. Welcome to my church of partiality. Can you imagine? You're bouncing around the internet and you get me. People are totally floored. I mean, I get emails all the time on YouTube saying, you know, what are you, man? And then, you know, people say, wow, then I started listening to you, and, you know, you actually kind of know the Bible. You know, there's always a surprise that there's some credibility here. I don't know where that comes from, but there is a surprise, apparently. But imagine flipping around on YouTube, and you're a heavy woman, and you tune into a church where a little kid sings a song that says, "No fat chicks in heaven." I mean, let's be fair. Whatever scripture you imagine that says no homosexuals in heaven, says no gluttons in heaven either, by the way, and no adulterers in heaven. I mean, for the record. So, no fat chicks in heaven, you know? I mean, that's offensive. It's wrong. I mean, I'm joking and it's cringeworthy. Even using it as an example is rude. The fact that that's what I keep picking as my example, that I keep picking on one kind of person. It's rude, it's wrong, and even people who know me and know that you know, I love all different types of people and it's all good, are inside going, maybe if he stops using the same example, it won't come off like he's showing partiality to one kind of person. But imagine if I brought one of my children out and they sang that song for everybody, and we were hooting and hollering and it ended up on YouTube. How am I doing in spreading the gospel? How am I doing being a living example of the law of liberty? Well, I have the liberty to say whatever I want. And these people said they do not condone hate. That video should not represent hate. But they just stand by what the Bible stands for. Really? Really? Would we think it was okay if little kids were singing no adulterers in heaven, no whoremongers in heaven? We'd be like, why don't they teach them something nice? There's another way to say it. I know, you're all welcomed in heaven, we all want you in heaven, the doors are wide open, you know? There's another way to say it. You know what? You don't have to preach particular sin. That's why I always pick on the fat people. And the reason I pick on the fat people is because we're all gluttons. There's not a glutton in the room that's not a glutton. You know what I'm saying? We're all guilty of that. We all do it. We all do it. You know, mine is Hostess Donuts. The little chocolate-covered donuts that come in a bag. If I buy the 6-pack at the QT, I might be okay for the night, but if the kids get me to buy the bag and they go to bed, yep, I have weird dreams all night. You know what I'm saying? But we're all guilty of it. And it would be pointless for me to preach it. Pointless. Even if I was svelte, it would be pointless. Because that's not the way. Jesus didn't have to do that. He had much bigger fish to fry for 5,000 people. That's when you need to have one of those church bands that never leave their spots. The drummer goes, but seriously, if a little kid came up to me and saying, there's no homos in heaven, and I said, well then, God won't mind if I do this. Boom! You know what I'm saying? Enough's enough. Enough's enough. When that little kid shows up at high school and kills all the queer kids, they're going to blame the queers again. I mean, seriously. But, again, this is ugly. This is ugly speak. I'm right and I sound ugly. You know what I'm saying? Because it's ugly. This is not how we represent the law of liberty. This is not how we do it. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Well, I understand that if I play rock, paper, scissors with you, that I want to win. You know what I'm saying? That I want to win. So you got to go for the scissors. Because the scissors beats paper. And just hope but the other person did paper and not rock. You know what triumphs over what. You know what you want to play. When I play poker, I want to have a better hand than you. I don't really play poker, but I play Yahtzee, which is poker with dice, by the way. That's exactly what it is. And I love the little single-person little electric game that you can play in the car of Yahtzee. Or you can do it on the internet. You can download it, but be careful of viruses. But then again, you can download a major virus that'll teach you that it's okay to sing hate songs at your church. And you know what we're learning? The media picks up on it, and these people get famous because I don't even learn names, by the way. I gave up on the Westboro Church, but because I thought that was an isolated incident. It's not. Now the schmuck who wants to put all the homos on an island and put up an electric fence and then let them die out so they can't make more homos, is doing the talk show circuit. So what if he gets his ass kicked on The View? He's still on The View. He's still more famous. Well, he's still more famous than me. That doesn't seem fair. But he's spreading the bad news. And bad news is very popular. Very popular. But the problem is we know the true and living God, and we answer to the true and living God. And He commands us to show mercy and not partiality. He commands us to show mercy. Because mercy triumphs over judgment. But we are becoming known as the judgment of our society. And we are teaching non-believers that it really makes sense not to come to our churches. That it really makes sense not to let us talk about Jesus anywhere. Thank God we got them out of schools. Thank God we're not allowed to pray in school. Now we got to get them out of the workplace. We are setting ourselves up for a Holocaust by behaving like this. Because nobody wants this. I don't want this. I don't want this. I hope when the day comes when they're cutting off our heads, they ask me the right question. Are you a Christian? I don't know if I'd say yes to that and be lying or telling the truth. Do you know the true and living God who happens to be Jesus? Yeah, off with my head. There seems to be a big difference nowadays. A very big difference. But I'm frightened for every soul that lives and dies without knowing the Lord. That's why I do what I do. That's why I open up my church to the world. Because I hope somebody sees this and goes, I think that person really is a Christian. Like how they're supposed to be, that they really love the Lord and they're scared enough of the power and authority of the Lord to learn His ways. And even if they don't live them, they're certainly not going to exact something different on someone else. And that's the key, is that we're basically saying, no homos in heaven. You know what? I love that. No homos in heaven. You know what? Do you know that there will be no heterosexuals in heaven either? Seriously. There won't be one. There won't be one single breeder in heaven. And I love you guys are nodding because you know what I mean, don't you? You know what I'm going to say, don't you? Do you know who said it? You know who actually said it in the Bible? Don't give away my punchline. I want to say it. J to the E to the S to the U to the S said it. Jesus said, when the Pharisees came up to Him and said, if a man was married to a woman and he dies and the brother marries a woman, then he dies and the next brother and the next brother, who is her husband in heaven? And He said, because of the wickedness of your hearts, you would ask such a stupid question. You know what He was saying? I mean, I hate to say it. You guys can't stop thinking about sex. So you think heaven is going to be, for me, the land of the marshmallow as health food, and for, you know what I'm saying? That you, or worse, you can't stand your wives and you're afraid you're going to be stuck with her for all eternity. I mean, He said, gosh, you guys are perverts.